I help you with something?
What are you doing here, sir? I need to see some ID.
Since when does reading a book require ID?
You fit the description. We need papers or proof you belong here.
Proof I belong here? In a public park?
I'm not going to ask again. ID or you're being detained.
1 hour. That's how long Special Agent Terrence Brooks had to wait before picking up his daughters from dance class. 1 hour of quiet on a park bench near the lake in Piedmont Park. 1 hour with a paperback novel and the September sunshine filtering through the trees. It was a ritual he had maintained for 3 years. The same bench, the same book, the same peaceful interlude in a life dedicated to counter-terrorism investigations and protecting people from threats they would never see coming. Officer Kyle Pemberton interrupted that hour at 12:17 p.m. I need to see some ID. Since when does reading a book require ID? You fit the description. Papers or proof you belong here. Proof he belonged. In a public park. On a Saturday afternoon. While his daughters learned ballet 2 blocks away. The Bodycam captured everything. The FBI captured the footage within hours. $6.2 million captured the cost of assuming a black man with a book didn't belong in a space that belonged to everyone. Piedmont Park stretched across 185 acres in the heart of Atlanta. Green space surrounded by the city skyline, trails winding past lakes and meadows, families and joggers and couples sharing the Saturday afternoon. The bench near the lake had become Terrence Brooks' sanctuary. 12 years with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Atlanta Field Office, Counterterrorism Division. Lead investigator on domestic terrorism cases across the Southeast. 2 planned attacks on federal buildings prevented. Plots that never made the news because his work had stopped them before they could unfold. The shield of bravery hung in his home office. He had earned it during a raid on a militia compound in rural Georgia. The bullet had entered his left shoulder, shattered his clavicle, and missed his heart by 3 inches. He had continued directing his team while bleeding on the compound floor. Before the FBI, 5 years as a Georgia state trooper. Before that, Morehouse College, criminal justice degree, the first in his family to graduate from a 4-year university. His mother still had the photograph on her mantle, her son in cap and gown, the future stretching ahead of him. Now he spent Saturdays reading on a park bench while Maya and Sophia learned pirouettes 2 blocks away. 9 and 6 years old. His wife, Denise, was at a principal's conference in Savannah. The girls had dance class. The park had a bench with his name on it. The paperback was a thriller, ironic, given his profession. He read for escape, not realism. The fictional FBI agents in these novels bore little resemblance to the actual work of counterterrorism investigation. He was 40 pages in when the jogger passed. Melissa Hayward, 43, was a regular at the park. She jogged the lake loop 3 times every Saturday morning, earbuds in, pace steady. She noticed the black man on the bench as she passed, noticed him the way some people noticed any black man in a space they considered theirs. She found Officer Kyle Pemberton near the boathouse. He was on foot patrol, part of Atlanta PD's increased park presence during weekend hours. Officer, there's a man sitting alone by the lake. He's been there for a while. Just sitting, on a bench. By himself. He looks suspicious. Suspicious how? I don't know. He just doesn't look like he belongs here. Pemberton didn't ask what belonging looked like. He didn't point out that sitting on a bench in a public park wasn't a crime. He didn't suggest that perhaps the man was simply enjoying a Saturday afternoon. He walked toward the lake. Brooks was still reading when he noticed the officer approaching. Light blue patrol uniform. Notepad in hand. The particular posture of someone who had already decided what they were looking at. He set his bookmark and looked up. Can I help you with something? Pemberton stopped 3 feet from the bench. His partner, Officer Denise Washington, arrived 30 seconds later, her body cam already active, capturing the scene from a wider angle. What are you doing here, sir? I need to see some ID. Brooks closed his book. His expression carried the calm that 12 years of high-stakes investigations had made instinctive. Since when does reading a book require ID? We received a report about a suspicious individual. You fit the description. What description? Black male, sitting alone near the lake. That's not a description. That's an activity. I'm going to need to see some identification. On what legal basis? We're investigating a report. A report of what crime? Pemberton's jaw tightened. Washington's body cam captured the reaction. The first sign that this encounter wasn't following the script he had expected. Sir, I'm conducting a welfare check. A welfare check on a man reading a book in a public park? My welfare is fine. I'm waiting to pick up my daughters from dance class. Dance class. 2 blocks from here. Atlanta Dance Academy. Class ends at 1:15. He checked his watch, 52 minutes. And you're just sitting here? Yes, sitting. In a public park. On a Saturday afternoon. The way hundreds of other people are sitting in this park right now. He gestured toward the surrounding area. Families on blankets. Couples on benches. Joggers resting near the water. Dozens of people engaged in the same activity he was being questioned about. All of them white. None of them approached by officers. Sir, I need to see your ID. You haven't articulated a crime. You haven't explained why I'm being singled out. You've told me I fit the description of a black man sitting alone, which describes roughly half the black men in Atlanta on any given Saturday. Are you going to cooperate or not? I'm going to exercise my constitutional rights. I'm sitting in a public space. I'm not engaged in any illegal activity. You have no reasonable suspicion of any crime. Pemberton stepped closer. His hand moved to his belt, not to his weapon, but to the notepad he carried. You fit the description. We need papers or proof you belong here. Papers. Brooks repeated the word with deliberate weight. Proof I belong here? In a public park? That's what I said. Officer, I was born in Macon, Georgia. I've lived in Atlanta for 15 years. I pay taxes that fund this park. I vote for the officials who manage this city. I've spent my career protecting people who live here from threats they'll never know about. I don't care about your career. You should, because my career involves investigating civil rights violations exactly like this one. Pemberton's face flushed. Washington's camera caught it, the color rising, the realization that this man wasn't the easy encounter he had anticipated. I'm not going to ask again. ID or you're being detained. Brooks looked at Washington, at her Bodycam, at the park security camera mounted on a pole 30 feet away, at the family on a nearby blanket, the father now holding up his phone. For the record, I am being asked to produce identification for the act of sitting on a park bench. I have committed no crime. I have articulated no threat. The officer's stated basis for this stop is that I fit the description of a black male sitting alone. He reached slowly toward his pocket. I'm going to show you something that should end this conversation. Brooks produced a leather credential case with the deliberate movements of someone who understood how officers could interpret sudden gestures. He opened it slowly, displaying the contents clearly for both body cams. The badge gleamed in the September sunlight. Gold shield. Eagle atop. The letters that identified one of the most powerful law enforcement agencies in the world. Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm Special Agent Terrence Brooks. FBI Atlanta Field Office. Counterterrorism Division. 12 years of service. He held the credentials steady. Pemberton's body cam captured them clearly. So did Washington's. So did the park cameras and the phones now appearing throughout the surrounding area. You can verify my identity by calling the Atlanta Field Office. The number is on the credential case. Ask for the duty agent. They'll confirm my status. Pemberton took the credentials. He examined them with the same theatrical suspicion that had defined the encounter from the start. These could be fake. They're not fake. They're issued by the Department of Justice. Anyone can buy one of these online. Anyone can buy a replica. No one can buy working FBI credentials with a badge number that verifies through the Bureau's system. How do I know that? Call the number. It's right there. The Atlanta Field Office will confirm my identity, my badge number, my assignment. It takes 30 seconds. Pemberton turned the credential case over. He held it up to the light, as if examining currency for counterfeiting. This doesn't look right. It looks exactly right. I've carried those credentials for 12 years. The seal looks off. The seal is identical to every FBI credential issued since 1935. If you've seen enough to recognize an authentic one, you should recognize that one. Washington spoke for the first time, quietly, directed at her partner. Kyle, maybe we should call it in. Verify through dispatch. I don't need dispatch. I can tell when something's fake. You can tell. Brooks' voice remained level, but the temperature dropped. You have forensic training in document authentication? You've examined enough FBI credentials to identify counterfeits. I know what I'm looking at. You're looking at a federal law enforcement officer showing you valid credentials and offering immediate verification. You're choosing to reject both. Pemberton handed the credential case back. Not to return it, to hold it as evidence. I'm keeping these until we sort this out. You're confiscating FBI credentials? I'm securing potential evidence of impersonation. Impersonation. Brooks looked at Washington, at her body cam, at the cameras surrounding them. Officer Washington, I want it on record that your partner is confiscating credentials that belong to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Credentials I have offered to verify through official channels. Credentials he has refused to authenticate. Washington's expression carried something Pemberton's didn't, doubt. The recognition that something was going wrong. Kyle, just call it in. Takes 2 minutes. And let him run while we're waiting? No. Run where? I told you, my daughters are in dance class. I'm picking them up in 48 minutes. I have nowhere to go and no reason to flee. Pemberton reached for his radio, but not to verify credentials. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I need backup at Piedmont Park, near the lake. Possible federal impersonation. Suspect is refusing to cooperate. Brooks heard every word. So did the cameras. So did the witnesses who had gathered at a distance, phones raised, documenting what would become one of the most watched police encounter videos of the year. You just call me a suspect. I've committed no crime. Impersonating a federal officer is a crime. I'm not impersonating. I am the federal officer. We'll see about that. The backup arrived in 4 minutes. 2 additional officers, Michaels and Turner, approaching from the boathouse area. Their body cams activated as they reached the scene, adding 2 more angles to the documentation. What do we have? Possible federal impersonator. Claims to be FBI. Credentials look fake. Did you verify through dispatch? He could have accomplices on the other end. I'm not falling for that. Brooks remained seated on the bench, the position he had maintained since the encounter began. His hands rested on his knees, visible, unthreatening. The posture of someone who understood that composure was the only weapon available. Officers, I am Special Agent Terrence Brooks, FBI Atlanta Field Office. My credentials are authentic. They can be verified through the Bureau's 24-hour duty line. I am not resisting. I am not fleeing. I am sitting on a park bench waiting for my daughters. Michaels looked at the credential case in Pemberton's hand. At Brooks. At the growing crowd of witnesses. Kyle, did you try to verify? I told you. Did you call the FBI field office? The number could be fake. It's on the credential case. It's the same number we use for federal coordination on joint operations. I'm not taking that chance. Michaels exchanged a glance with Turner. Something passed between them. The recognition of a colleague who had gone too far down a path that couldn't end well. Sir, Michaels addressed Brooks directly. We're going to verify your credentials. Can you provide any additional identification? My driver's license is in my wallet. My Georgia concealed carry permit is in my wallet. Both issued in my name, matching the name on my FBI credentials. May I see them? Yes. Brooks reached slowly for his back pocket. He produced his wallet, opened it, displayed the license and permit. Terrence Bernard Brooks. Same name, same photograph. Michaels examined the documents. He pulled out his phone, began dialing a number. I'm calling the FBI field office. Good. Ask for the duty agent. Reference badge number 4847. Pemberton stepped forward. We're not waiting for that. He needs to be secured. Secured for what? Sitting on a bench. For impersonating a federal officer. You don't know that yet. That's why we're verifying. I know what I saw. You saw a man with credentials offering verification. That's not impersonation. That's cooperation. Pemberton's hand moved to his cuffs. He's being detained until we sort this out. Kyle. But Pemberton had already moved. He grabbed Brooks' arm and pulled him from the bench. Stand up. Hands behind your back. I am not resisting. I am complying under duress with what I believe to be an unlawful detention. Hands behind your back. Brooks complied. His hands moved behind him, slowly, visibly, documented by every camera present. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists. An FBI agent, handcuffed on a park bench in Piedmont Park, surrounded by Saturday afternoon families and joggers, and the phones that recorded everything. You're making a mistake. We'll see. My partner is expecting me for lunch in 30 minutes. When I don't show up, he's going to check my location. When he sees I'm here, he's going to call the field office. When the field office can't reach me, they're going to make calls that you cannot imagine. Is that a threat? It's a prediction. I've worked with the Bureau for 12 years. I know exactly what happens when an agent goes dark in an unexpected location. Pemberton said nothing. Michaels had stepped away, phone to his ear. Yes, I'm trying to verify credentials for someone claiming to be Special Agent Terrence Brooks. Badge number 4847. The response on the other end changed his expression entirely. Special Agent Derek Coleman had been Brooks' partner for 7 years. They had worked counterterrorism cases together, shared surveillance duties, built the kind of trust that came from facing danger as a team. They also had a standing Saturday lunch date. 1 p.m., a barbecue place in Midtown that did brisket worth driving across the city for. At 12:45, Coleman was waiting at the restaurant when his phone buzzed. A location alert. He had set it up years ago, standard protocol for partners who worked the cases they worked. If either of them stayed stationary in an unexpected location for more than 20 minutes, the other got notified. Brooks' phone was pinging from Piedmont Park. That wasn't unusual. Coleman knew about the Saturday ritual, the bench, the daughters in dance class. But Brooks wasn't moving, and he wasn't answering texts. Coleman tried calling. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. The protocol was clear. When an agent with their clearance level went unreachable, you didn't wait. You escalated. He dialed the Atlanta field office. This is Special Agent Coleman. I need to confirm the location and status of Special Agent Brooks. He's showing stationary at Piedmont Park and not responding to communication. The duty agent pulled up the tracking system, standard for counterterrorism personnel. We show him at the same location. No movement for 37 minutes. That's too long. He should have moved by now. His daughter's class ends at 1:15. Want us to ping his phone? Yes. And get me a visual if you can. Park cameras, anything in the area. It took 4 minutes to access the Piedmont Park security system. The duty agent found the camera angle covering the lake area. I have him. He's on a bench near the lake. There are officers with him. Officers. Atlanta PD. 4 of them. And a pause. He's in handcuffs. Coleman was already moving toward his car. What? He's handcuffed on the bench. There's a crowd gathering. Phones are out. Give me the field office supervisor. Now. The call went up the chain with the speed that only federal agencies could achieve. Within 3 minutes, the supervisory special agent for the Atlanta field office was on the line. Coleman, what do we have? Brooks is in custody at Piedmont Park. Atlanta PD has him in cuffs. No idea why. In custody for what? Unknown. He's not answering his phone. Get down there. I'm calling Atlanta PD command. The call that went to the Atlanta Police Department came from the FBI's Atlanta field office, routed through official channels, carrying the weight of federal authority. This is Supervisory Special Agent Patricia Reeves, FBI Atlanta field office. We have confirmed that one of our agents is currently in custody of your officers at Piedmont Park. I need to speak with whoever is in charge of that scene immediately. Ma'am, I'll need to verify. Badge number 4847. Special Agent Terrence Brooks. 12 years of service. Counterterrorism Division. He's in handcuffs in a public park, and I need to know why right now. The dispatcher scrambled to connect to the officers at the scene. At Piedmont Park, Officer Michaels had just finished his call to the FBI duty line. His face had gone pale. Kyle. His voice was barely controlled. Uncuff him. What? Uncuff him now. The FBI just confirmed. He's one of their agents. Counterterrorism. 12 years. Pemberton stared at the handcuffed man on the bench. That's not possible. It's confirmed. Badge number verified. Service record verified. He's exactly who he said he was. The radio on Michael's belt crackled with an incoming transmission. All units at Piedmont Park, be advised. FBI command has contacted headquarters. The individual in custody is confirmed federal agent. Release immediately. Sergeant William Patterson arrived at 12:58 p.m. 15 years on the force. The kind of supervisor who had seen officers make mistakes before, but nothing quite like this. He found a scene that would define his department's next 2 years. A black man in handcuffs on a park bench. For officers surrounding him, a crowd of witnesses with phones raised, and a radio channel exploding with communications from headquarters about FBI contact and federal jurisdiction. What the hell happened here? Pemberton started to explain. Sarge, we received a report about a suspicious. Why is this man in handcuffs? He was claiming to be FBI. The credentials looked fake. Did you verify them? I was going to. Did you call the field office? Silence. Did you run his badge number through any database? More silence. Patterson turned to Brooks, still handcuffed, still composed, still sitting on the bench where this had begun. Sir, I'm Sergeant Patterson. Can you tell me what happened? I was reading a book on this bench. waiting to pick up my daughters from dance class. Officer Pemberton approached me, demanded identification, and when I showed him my FBI credentials, he called them fake and handcuffed me. Did you offer verification? Multiple times. He refused to call the field office. He refused to run my badge number. He confiscated my credentials and called for backup. Patterson looked at the credential case in Pemberton's hand. Give me those. He examined the credentials, the badge, the photo ID, the distinctive seal that every Atlanta cop should recognize from federal coordination operations. These look authentic to me. Sarge, anyone can buy. These look exactly like the credentials I've seen on every FBI agent I've ever worked with, which is more than you've apparently encountered. His radio crackled again. Sergeant Patterson, be advised, FBI Supervisory Special Agent is requesting direct communication with Scene Commander. They're sending agents to your location. Patterson closed his eyes briefly. Uncuff this man. Now. Pemberton hesitated. I said now. Washington moved first. She had the key out before Pemberton could object. The handcuffs came off with a click that seemed louder than it should have been. Brooks rubbed his wrists. The marks were visible, red lines where the metal had been too tight. Sergeant, I told your officer exactly what would happen if he detained me. The FBI has protocols for when agents go unreachable. People were going to start looking for me. People were going to start making calls. Those calls were going to reach your department. I understand. 45 minutes. That's how long this encounter lasted. 45 minutes of being accused of impersonation, being told I don't belong in a public park, being handcuffed on a bench where I've sat every Saturday for 3 years. Sir, I apologize. I don't want your apology. I want to know why your officer thought a black man reading a book required investigation. I want to know what description I supposedly fit. I want to know why papers were demanded from an American citizen in a public space. Patterson had no answers. Not good ones. My daughters are going to be waiting for me in 15 minutes. I need to pick them up. I'm going to be late because your officer couldn't imagine that a black man sitting on a bench might actually belong there. He stood. He gathered his book, the paperback that had fallen to the ground during the handcuffing. He retrieved his credentials from Patterson's hand. The FBI will be in contact. So will my attorney. A black SUV pulled into the park's nearest lot. 2 men in suits emerged, Coleman and another agent from the field office. And Sergeant, that's them now. The investigation moved with the urgency of a case involving a federal agent. FBI Internal Affairs, DOJ Civil Rights Division, Atlanta PD Professional Standards. 3 parallel inquiries examining the same encounter from different angles. The Bodycam footage was the foundation. For angles, every moment documented. But the investigation would reveal the architecture beneath it. Officer Kyle Pemberton had accumulated 11 complaints in 6 years. Discriminatory conduct, failure to follow procedure, harassment. 7 had been dismissed through departmental review. 4 had resulted in written reprimands, paper that went into his file and changed nothing about his behavior. The pattern was visible in the data. His stop records showed consistent targeting of black individuals in parks and public spaces. Piedmont Park, Grant Park, Centennial Olympic Park. Anywhere that a black person relaxing might attract the kind of attention Pemberton was eager to provide. 9 prior suspicious person detentions. All black men. All engaged in legal activities. Sitting, walking, reading, eating lunch. The crimes of existing in public while black. His social media accounts filled in the picture. Posts shared from accounts that trafficked in racial grievance. Comments about certain people taking over our parks. Membership in online groups where officers shared stories about quality of life, enforcement, the sanitized language for targeting minorities in spaces they were perceived not to belong. Text messages to fellow officers revealed more. Jokes about bench patrol. Comments about keeping parks family-friendly. A message sent 2 weeks before the Brooks incident. Got another suspicious one at Piedmont today. These people think they can just sit anywhere. The jogger who had made the initial complaint was interviewed separately. Why did you report Mr. Brooks? He was sitting alone. For a long time. Did you see him do anything illegal? No. Did he threaten anyone? Approach anyone? Act erratically? No. He was just sitting. What made that suspicious? He didn't look like he belonged there. What does someone who belongs at Piedmont Park look like? She had no answer that wouldn't confirm what the investigation already knew. The FBI's internal review added another dimension. Brooks' service record was exemplary. 12 years without a single disciplinary issue. 2 terrorist plots prevented. A bullet wound earned protecting the country. The Shield of Bravery, the Bureau's second highest honor for heroism. Agent Brooks has dedicated his career to protecting Americans from threats they'll never know about, Supervisory Special Agent Reeves stated in her summary. He was detained for reading a book in a public park by an officer who couldn't imagine he belonged there. The federal grand jury convened 8 weeks after the incident. The charges presented: deprivation of rights under color of law, false imprisonment, civil rights violations. The evidence was comprehensive. The body cams, the park cameras, the phone recordings, the dispatch records showing no actual crime reported, just suspicious person. Brooks testified about the encounter, about the demand for papers, about the accusation that his credentials were fake, about being handcuffed on a bench where he had sat peacefully for 3 years. I've spent my career investigating threats to this country. I've taken a bullet in service of that mission, and I was treated like a criminal for waiting to pick up my daughters from dance class. The grand jury returned indictments within hours. The federal courtroom in Atlanta drew national attention. The case had become a symbol: an FBI agent with a shield of bravery, handcuffed in a public park for the crime of reading while black. Brooks testified in his bureau dress attire. 12 years of service represented in his bearing, his composure, his precise recounting of facts. On September 14th, I was seated on a bench in Piedmont Park. I had a book. I was waiting for my daughters to finish dance class. Officer Pemberton approached me and demanded identification. Did he explain why? He said I fit the description of a suspicious person. When I asked what description, he said, black male, sitting alone. Did you provide identification? I showed him my FBI credentials. Badge, photo ID, the credential case issued by the Department of Justice. What was his response? He said they looked fake. He said anyone could buy them online. He refused to verify them through official channels. The bodycam footage was played for the jury. They watched Pemberton approach. They watched the demand for papers. They watched the credentials dismissed. They watched the handcuffs applied to a man who had offered every form of verification available. Agent Brooks, what was going through your mind when you were handcuffed? I was thinking about my daughters. They were going to be waiting for me outside their dance class, and I wasn't going to be there. I was thinking about my career, 12 years of service, and this is how I'm treated by a fellow law enforcement officer. I was thinking about my father, who was a postal worker for 35 years, and my mother, who taught 3rd grade for 40 years, and how they raised me to believe that working hard and following the rules would be enough. He paused. It wasn't enough. Not for Officer Pemberton. For him, the only thing that mattered was the color of my skin. The agents who had responded to the scene testified about the federal protocols, about the tracking system, about the calls that had gone up the chain when Brooks went unreachable. When an agent with Agent Brooks' clearance level goes dark, we treat it as a potential crisis, Agent Coleman explained. We had people heading to that park within minutes of confirming his location. The jogger who had made the original complaint was called as a witness. Under oath, her testimony collapsed into the same empty phrases she had given investigators. He didn't look like he belonged. What does belonging look like, Ms. Hayward? She had no answer. Pemberton's attorney attempted the standard defense. Good faith. Responding to a report. No way to know. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. No way to know. Agent Brooks showed him FBI credentials. He offered verification through the field office. He provided his badge number. Officer Pemberton refused every avenue of confirmation because he had already decided what he was looking at: a black man who couldn't possibly be who he claimed to be. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Pemberton sat motionless as the verdicts were read. His family in the gallery remained silent. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder. The defendant detained a federal agent for reading in a public park. He demanded papers from an American citizen. He handcuffed a man who had dedicated his life to protecting this country. The evidence leaves no room for doubt. The courtroom was silent as the judge reviewed the pre-sentencing materials. 6 years of complaints. 11 documented incidents. A pattern visible to anyone who looked. Officer Pemberton, you were entrusted with a badge to protect all citizens equally. Instead, you used that badge to target individuals based on race. You demanded papers from a man whose only crime was reading a book in a public park. You dismissed valid FBI credentials because you couldn't imagine a black man actually being who he claimed to be. She paused. You didn't just violate Special Agent Brooks' civil rights. You violated the trust that every citizen places in law enforcement. You reinforced every fear that black Americans carry when they encounter police. You proved that even the highest credentials, the most exemplary service, the most obvious innocence, none of it matters to an officer who sees race before anything else. The sentence, 5 years federal prison. Enhanced for targeting under color of law. Enhanced for the documented pattern of civil rights violations. Pemberton was led from the courtroom in handcuffs, the same restraints he had applied to Brooks in a park on a Saturday afternoon. The civil settlement followed within 3 months. Atlanta agreed to pay $6.2 million rather than face a trial the city knew it would lose. Brooks distributed the money with purpose. $2 million to establish scholarships for minority students pursuing careers in federal law enforcement, ensuring that the next generation of agents would look like the communities they served. $1 million to civil rights organizations focused on public accommodation, funding the systemic change that individual cases couldn't achieve. The remaining funds secured his family's future. College for Maya and Sophia. Retirement for his parents. The stability that service should have always guaranteed. The Atlanta Police Department entered a DOJ consent decree. 5 years of federal oversight. Mandatory anti-discrimination training. Reformed complaint review processes. The systems that had allowed 11 complaints to go unaddressed would finally be dismantled. The chief of police resigned before he could be forced out. 3 supervisors who had dismissed prior complaints were demoted. Officer Washington, who had expressed doubt, who had suggested verification, who had been the one to remove the handcuffs, was promoted. She now leads the department's community relations training. Melissa Hayward, the jogger whose complaint had started it all, faced no criminal charges. The civil lawsuit that Brooks filed against her settled for an undisclosed amount. She sold her home in the neighborhood adjacent to Piedmont Park and moved to the suburbs. Brooks returned to duty 6 weeks after the incident. The counterterrorism work continued. The threats kept coming. The mission remained. He still spends Saturdays at Piedmont Park. Same bench, same book, same hour while Maya and Sophia dance 2 blocks away. The officers who patrol the park now recognize him. They nod. They wave. They keep walking. On the first anniversary of the incident, the park placed a small plaque near the bench. Not at Brooks' request, at the request of community members who had watched the footage and wanted something permanent to mark what had happened. This bench is dedicated to the right of all Americans to exist peacefully in public spaces. In recognition of Special Agent Terrence Brooks, who was detained here for reading while black, and who responded with the dignity that defines true service. Brooks sat beside the plaque on its dedication day. Maya and Sophia ran across the grass nearby. His wife held his hand. 1 hour of peace. 1 bench by the lake. 1 book. And a nation that watched what happens when officers forget who belongs in public spaces. Everyone belongs. That was always the point.
I already showed you my ID.
You fit the description of a shoplifter. Turn around, sir.
I paid for my groceries. You're making a mistake, officer.
I said turn around. Don't make this harder than it needs to be.
I'm a Navy SEAL. You don't want to do this.
I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. You're being detained.
15 minutes. That's how long it took for the Department of Defense to respond when Chief Petty Officer Marcus Reynolds didn't check in for a scheduled secure briefing. He was supposed to be at Naval Special Warfare Command by noon, a planning session for an operation that would remain classified for decades. Instead, he was face down on the floor of a Whole Foods in Virginia Beach, an officer's knee on his back, being detained for fitting the description of a shoplifter. The description was simple: black male. The groceries in his reusable bags were paid for. His receipt was in his pocket. His military ID was in his wallet. His sealed trident tattoo was visible on his forearm. None of it mattered to Officer Derek Sloan. But it mattered to the 2 men in suits who walked through the door 15 minutes later. DoD credentials, Pentagon authority, and the particular urgency that accompanies a missing special operator with active security clearance. The Bodycam captured Sloan's face when he realized what he had done. The investigation captured everything else. The Whole Foods on Independence Boulevard served the military families of Virginia Beach, a community built around Naval Station Norfolk and the Special Warfare Commands that operated from its facilities. Shopping carts filled with organic produce and protein moved past service members in civilian clothes, their fitness levels, and bearing the only indicators of their profession. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Reynolds had 45 minutes before his briefing. Enough time to grab groceries for the week, drop them at his apartment, and make the drive to the compound. His girlfriend was flying in that evening. The refrigerator was empty. The errand was routine. 14 years Navy SEAL. 4 combat deployments. 2 to Afghanistan. 1 to Syria. 1 to a location that remained redacted in every document. Silver Star for actions during a firefight that had never appeared in any news report. 3 Bronze Stars. Navy Commendation Medal with Valor. The kind of service record that filled classified personnel files but never made headlines. Bud/S Class 287. Hell Week Survivor. The trident tattoo on his right forearm, eagle, anchor, trident, pistol, marked him as one of approximately 2,500 active duty SEALs in the entire United States Navy. This morning, he wore a fitted black Under Armour shirt, khaki cargo pants, and tactical boots. Standard off-duty attire for operators who never fully shed the readiness that training had made instinctive. His reusable grocery bag sat in the cart, meal prep supplies, protein sources, the fuel that maintained the physical capability his job required. He was in the checkout line when Amanda Whitfield, a store employee restocking shelves near the front entrance, watched him approach the register. She saw a muscular black man with grocery bags. She saw someone who didn't match her expectation of the store's typical clientele. She saw something that made her uncomfortable. She found her manager. "There's a man at checkout who I think might be shoplifting. He has bags, but I didn't see him get a cart." The manager looked toward the registers. He saw Reynolds placing items on the conveyor belt, the same items visible in security footage being selected from shelves over the previous 20 minutes. He's checking out. He's paying. I just have a feeling. What feeling? I don't know. He just doesn't look right. The manager should have dismissed it. The cameras showed a customer shopping normally. The register would show a completed transaction. There was no basis for concern. Instead, he called the police non-emergency line. "We might have a shoplifter at Whole Foods on Independence. Black male, athletic build, black shirt. Can you send someone to check it out?" Officer Derek Sloan was 3 blocks away. 8 years on the Virginia Beach PD. A reputation that would become clear during the investigation that followed. He arrived at 11:38 a.m. Reynolds was walking toward the exit, receipt in hand, groceries bagged. Sloan intercepted him 10 feet from the door. "He's checking out. He's paying. I just have a feeling." "What feeling? I don't know. He just doesn't look right." The manager should have dismissed it. The cameras showed a customer shopping normally. The register would show a completed transaction. There was no basis for concern. Instead, he called the police non-emergency line. "We might have a shoplifter at Whole Foods on Independence. Black male, athletic build, black shirt. Can you send someone to check it out?" Officer Derek Sloan was 3 blocks away. 8 years on the Virginia Beach PD. A reputation that would become clear during the investigation that followed. He arrived at 11:38 a.m. Reynolds was walking toward the exit, receipt in hand, groceries bagged. Sloan intercepted him 10 feet from the door. Chapter 2. The description. 650 words. "Sir, I need you to stop." Reynolds paused. His hands remained visible, holding the reusable bags, nothing concealed. The training was automatic. 14 years of operating in environments where sudden movements invited lethal responses. "Is there a problem, officer? We received a report of shoplifting. I need to see your receipt." Reynolds set the bags down slowly. He reached into his back pocket, telegraphing the movement, keeping it visible, and produced the receipt. "Here. Everything's accounted for." Sloan took the receipt. His eyes moved across it briefly, then back to Reynolds. "I'm going to need to see some ID." "For what?" "You have the receipt. The items match. I need to verify your identity." Reynolds reached for his wallet. Same deliberate movement. Same visibility. He produced his military ID, the card that identified him as active duty Navy, his rank, his command. Sloan examined it. His expression didn't change. "This doesn't prove you paid for these groceries." "The receipt proves I paid for the groceries. The ID proves who I am." "What else do you need?" "I need you to come with me to the security office." "For what purpose?" "To verify your story." "My story is that I bought groceries." "The receipt is the verification." The store cameras will show me selecting every item and paying at the register. Sloane's partner had arrived. Officer Reina Martinez, 3 years on the force. Her bodycam activated as she approached, capturing the scene from a wider angle. What's going on? Possible shoplifter. He's being uncooperative. Uncooperative. Reynolds' voice remained level, but the temperature had dropped. I've shown you my receipt. I've shown you my ID. I've explained exactly what happened. What part of that is uncooperative? Your attitude. My attitude is patient. My attitude is professional. My attitude is what keeps situations like this from escalating unnecessarily. Sloane stepped closer. His hand moved to rest on his holster, not drawing, but present. You fit the description of a shoplifter. What description? Black male. Athletic build. This location. Reynolds looked at Sloane. At Martinez. At the customers who had stopped to watch near the entrance. That's not a description. That's a demographic. Half the men at Naval Station Norfolk matched that description. I don't make the rules. Actually, you do. You decide what constitutes reasonable suspicion. You decide whether to stop someone. You decide whether a receipt and a military ID are sufficient verification. And I've decided they're not. Then we have a problem. Because I have a briefing at noon that I cannot miss. Classified. Time sensitive. And you're detaining me for buying groceries. I don't care about your briefing. You should. The people waiting for me at that briefing care about national security. They care about operations that keep this country safe. And right now, you're preventing me from attending because I fit the description of being black in a grocery store. Sloane's face reddened. Martinez's bodycam captured it. The flush of someone whose authority was being challenged by facts. I already showed you my ID. What exactly is the problem here? The problem is you fit the description of a shoplifter. Turn around. I paid for my groceries. You're making a mistake, officer. I said turn around. Now, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Reynolds looked directly into Sloane's bodycam. I'm a Navy SEAL. You don't want to do this. Sloane's hand closed around his arm. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. You're being detained. Reynolds didn't resist the grip. 14 years of training had taught him when to fight and when to wait. This wasn't a firefight. This was a grocery store with multiple cameras, 2 body cams, and witnesses throughout the checkout area. Composure was the weapon here. Documentation was the ammunition. For the record, I am Chief Petty Officer Marcus Reynolds, United States Navy. I am assigned to Naval Special Warfare Command. I have shown my military identification and my purchase receipt. I am being detained without probable cause. Shut up. I will not shut up. I'm documenting this encounter for the recording devices present. He raised his right arm slightly, not to strike, but to display. The sealed trident tattoo was clearly visible on his forearm. Eagle, anchor, trident, pistol. The emblem that fewer than 1% of those who attempt BUD/S training ever earn. You see this tattoo? This is a Navy SEAL trident. It's not something you can buy. It's not something you can fake. It represents the most demanding military training in the world. I've earned this through 14 years of service. Sloane glanced at the tattoo. His expression didn't change. Anyone can get a tattoo. Check my ID again. Naval Special Warfare Command. That's not a tattoo. That's official military documentation. I've seen fake military IDs before. You're looking at a real one. That's what everyone says. Martinez had positioned herself to the side, her bodycam capturing both men in frame. Her expression carried something Sloane's didn't, uncertainty. The recognition that something was wrong with this encounter. Derek, maybe we should call the store manager. Verify with the cameras. I don't need cameras. I have a description and a suspect. The description was black male. That's not a description. That's... Stay out of this, Martinez. Reynolds looked at her bodycam, at the doubt visible in her posture. Officer Martinez, for the record, your partner is detaining me based solely on my race. The description he cited contains no identifying information beyond skin color. I have provided documentation of my identity and my purchase. I am requesting that you contact my commanding officer at Naval Special Warfare Command to verify my status. Don't talk to her, Sloane interrupted. You talk to me. I'll talk to whoever is willing to listen to facts. You've demonstrated that's not you. Sloane's grip tightened on Reynolds' arm. You think you're smart? You think that military ID makes you special? I think that military ID represents 14 years of service to this country. I think it should warrant basic professional verification before you escalate a grocery store encounter into a federal incident. Federal incident? I'm active duty military with security clearance. Detaining me without cause creates jurisdictional complications you haven't considered. The only complication here is your mouth. My mouth is documenting your violations for the cameras that are going to be subpoenaed when this becomes a civil rights case. The customers near the entrance had multiplied. Phones were appearing. The particular tension of public confrontation drawing attention from every angle. Last chance, Sloan said. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. On what charge? Resisting. I haven't resisted anything. I'm standing still while you grip my arm. You're refusing to comply. I'm refusing to be handcuffed without legal cause. That's my constitutional right. Turn around. Reynolds looked at the cameras. At Martinez. At the crowd with their phones. I want it on record that I am not resisting. I am complying under duress with what I believe to be an unlawful detention. He turned slowly. Sloan grabbed his wrists and pushed. The takedown was aggressive and unnecessary. Reynolds had turned voluntarily. His hands were moving toward his back without resistance. Every camera in the store, body cams, security cameras, phones, captured a man complying with instructions. Sloan drove him forward anyway. Reynolds hit the floor face first. The impact was controlled. He turned his head at the last moment, absorbed the fall with his shoulder, protected his skull the way combatives' training had made instinctive. He had been thrown by men trying to kill him. This was violent but survivable. His groceries scattered. The reusable bags split open. Protein bars and vegetables rolling across the polished floor of a Whole Foods entrance. Stay down. I am down. Sloan's knee pressed into his back, between the shoulder blades, pinning him to the tile. The position was uncomfortable but not injurious. Reynolds had endured worse in training evolutions designed to simulate capture. Hands behind your back. They're behind my back. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Cold metal. The same sensation he had felt in SEER school, learning to resist interrogation, learning that captivity was survivable if you maintained composure. Composure. That was the weapon. The body cams were recording. The store cameras were recording. The phones held by witnesses were recording. Every second of this encounter was being documented from multiple angles. He would not give Sloan the reaction he was looking for. You have the right to remain silent. I'm not being charged with a crime. You have no probable cause. I have a report of shoplifting. You have a report of a black man in a grocery store. That's not shoplifting. That's shopping. Anything you say can and will. I invoke my right to remain silent except to document this encounter. I am Chief Petty Officer Marcus Reynolds. I am being detained without probable cause after providing proof of purchase and military identification. A crowd had formed. 20 people. 30. The particular horror of watching someone being arrested in a public space, the uncertainty about whether to intervene, the phones recording from every angle. An older white man in a Naval Academy sweatshirt pushed forward. What the hell is going on here? That man showed you his ID. Sir, step back. I saw the whole thing. He paid for those groceries. He showed you the receipt. I won't tell you again. He's got a trident tattoo, for God's sake. You're arresting a Navy SEAL. Martinez stepped between the man and her partner. Sir, please, let us handle this. Handle what? A wrongful arrest? This is going to be on every news channel by tonight. Reynolds lay on the floor, cheek against cold tile, watching the scene from ground level. The witnesses. The phones. The man in the Navy sweatshirt who had recognized what Sloan refused to see. Officer Martinez. His voice was calm, measured. I have a classified briefing at Naval Special Warfare Command at noon. I was expected to check in 15 minutes ago. By now, my absence has been flagged. People will be looking for me. Martinez looked at her watch. At Reynolds. At her partner. Derek, maybe we should. We're not doing anything until he's processed. Processed for what? Shoplifting. He has a receipt. Receipts can be faked. The automatic doors opened. The Virginia Beach morning light spilled across the entrance. 2 men walked through. They wore suits. Dark. Expensive. The particular cut that indicated government service at a level above local law enforcement. Their badges were already in their hands. Credentials that made Martinez take a step backward and Sloan's knee lift slightly from Reynolds' back. Department of Defense. Officer, step away from that man. Sloan looked up. At the credentials. at the faces of men who had driven very fast to reach this location. Who the hell are you? We're the people who are going to explain to you exactly who you just put on the ground. The two men approached with the deliberate calm of professionals who had handled situations far more volatile than a grocery store confrontation. Their credentials remained visible: Department of Defense, Office of the Inspector General. I'm Agent Harrison. This is Agent Delgado. We're here for Chief Petty Officer Reynolds. Sloan remained crouched over Reynolds, though his knee had lifted from the operator's back. His face carried the confusion of someone whose certainty was encountering information it couldn't process. How do you know his name? Because we've been tracking his location for the past 20 minutes. He missed a scheduled check-in. When operators with his clearance level go dark, we investigate. Harrison looked down at Reynolds, still handcuffed, still on the floor, surrounded by scattered groceries. Chief, are you injured? Negative. Just detained. On what charge? Shoplifting. Allegedly. Harrison turned to Sloan. His expression carried nothing that could be called friendly. Shoplifting. You're detaining a Navy SEAL for shoplifting. We received a report. Did you verify the report? I was in the process. Did you check whether he paid for his groceries? Silence. Did you look at his receipt? He showed me a receipt. But, did you verify his military ID? Anyone can get. Did you contact Naval Special Warfare Command to confirm his identity? Sloan had no answer. Delgado had already moved to Reynolds' side. He knelt, examined the handcuffs, then looked at Martinez. Officer keys. Ah, yes. Here. She handed them over. Delgado unlocked the cuffs with practiced efficiency. Chief, can you stand? Reynolds rose slowly. He rolled his shoulders, the controlled movement of someone assessing physical status. No injury. No damage beyond the indignity. I'm operational. Your briefing has been postponed. Commander Reyes sends his regards and wants you to know the situation is being handled. Handled how? Jurisdictionally. Harrison turned back to Sloan. Officer, this man is active duty military assigned to a special warfare command. His security clearance is above anything you've ever encountered. When he goes missing, people at the Pentagon notice. When he goes missing in a grocery store parking lot, those people ask questions. I didn't know. You didn't ask. He offered identification. You refused to verify. He offered his receipt. You dismissed it. He identified himself as a Navy SEAL. You said. Harrison paused, consulting a phone that had clearly been receiving updates. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. The Bodycam footage had already been flagged. Someone at DoD was monitoring in real time. This is now a federal matter. Your Bodycam footage is being preserved. The store's security footage is being subpoenaed. Every phone recording in this crowd is potential evidence. Sloan's face had gone pale. The color change was visible on Martinez's Bodycam. Still recording, still capturing every moment of the encounter's reversal. I was just responding to a call. You were responding to a description that consisted of blackmail. That's not a description. That's racial profiling. And you applied it to one of the most decorated special operators on the East Coast. Reynolds had gathered his scattered groceries. The protein bars. The vegetables. The mundane supplies that had somehow become evidence in a federal civil rights investigation. Agent Harrison, I need to make a phone call. To Commander Reyes? To my attorney. Harrison nodded. Understood. We'll secure the scene. He turned to Sloan one final time. Officer, you're going to want to contact your union representative and your department's legal counsel, and possibly a very good defense attorney. For what? For what comes next? The Virginia Beach Police Department received notification within the hour. Not from the officers on scene, from the Pentagon. Captain William Forsyth was in his office when the call came through. The caller identified himself as representing the Department of Defense Office of Inspector General. The subject was an incident at Whole Foods involving one of their officers and an active-duty special warfare operator. What kind of incident? The kind that generates federal civil rights investigations. Forsyth pulled up the CAD system. Call for service. Possible shoplifter. Officers dispatched. No arrest logged. No transport. Just a status change. Cleared by DoD. Cleared by DoD? Chief Petty Officer Reynolds is assigned to Naval Special Warfare Command. He has security clearance at a level I can't discuss on this line. When he missed a scheduled briefing, his location was flagged. We dispatched agents. They found him face down on a grocery store floor in handcuffs. For shoplifting? for being black in a Whole Foods. The receipt was in his pocket. His military ID was in his wallet. Your officer dismissed both and proceeded to detain him. Forsyth closed his eyes. 8 years of building community relations, implicit bias training, de-escalation protocols, all of it undone by one officer's assumptions. I need to see the bodycam footage. You'll have it within the hour. So will the FBI. So will the U.S. Attorney's Office. FBI. Federal civil rights violations. Assault on military personnel. When you detain a special operator without cause and put him on the ground, you've created federal jurisdiction. Forsyth had already pulled Sloan's personnel file on his second monitor. The complaint's visible. The pattern emerging. I'll handle it internally. You'll handle it however the federal investigation allows. Officer Sloan is to be relieved of duty pending the outcome. His badge and weapon collected. He is not to discuss this incident with anyone except legal counsel. Understood. Captain, I want to be clear about something. Chief Petty Officer Reynolds has spent 14 years conducting operations that protect this country. He has a Silver Star, 3 Bronze Stars, and a security clearance that puts him in rooms with people whose names you'll never know. Your officer put him face down on a floor because someone called in black male as a description. I understand the severity. I don't think you do. Not yet. But you will. The call ended. Forsyth stared at his screen. At Sloan's file. At the 8 prior complaints that had been dismissed, minimized, explained away. This one wouldn't be explained away. The bodycam footage arrived 47 minutes later. Forsyth watched it twice. The first time with growing disbelief. The second time with the cold assessment of someone calculating liability. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. That line would end Sloan's career. That line would end up in federal court filings. That line would become the defining quote of a trial that would draw national attention. He picked up his phone. This is Captain Forsyth. I need to speak with Chief Patterson immediately. He's in a meeting. Get him out of it. We have a situation. 30 minutes later, Officer Derek Sloan was relieved of duty. His badge surrendered. His weapon collected. His patrol car keys returned to the motor pool. He was escorted from the building by internal affairs officers who had already received the federal preservation order for all electronic communications, personnel records, and body-worn camera footage related to his employment. This is ridiculous, Sloan said as he walked to his personal vehicle. It was a shoplifting call. It was a Navy SEAL, the IA investigator responded. And the Pentagon wants to know why he was on your floor. Sloan had no answer. He wouldn't find one. The investigation expanded within days. FBI Civil Rights Division, DOD Inspector General, Virginia Beach Internal Affairs. 3 parallel inquiries examining the same incident from different angles. The bodycam footage was the foundation, but the investigation would reveal the architecture beneath it. Officer Derek Sloan had accumulated 19 complaints in 8 years. Excessive force, discriminatory conduct, failure to follow procedure. 14 had been dismissed. 5 had resulted in written reprimands, paper that went into his file and changed nothing about his behavior. The pattern was visible in the data. His stop records showed consistent targeting of black individuals in retail environments, shopping centers, grocery stores, electronics retailers, anywhere that a black person with nice things might attract the kind of attention that Sloan was happy to provide. 12 prior shoplifting detentions, 0 convictions, 0 charges filed. 12 black men and women stopped, questioned, sometimes detained, all released when verification proved what they had told him from the start. His social media accounts filled in the picture. Posts shared without comment from accounts that trafficked in racial grievance. Comments on news articles celebrating aggressive policing. Membership in online groups where officers discussed which stores had the best calls, meaning locations where certain demographics could be stopped with minimal questions. Text messages to fellow officers revealed more. Jokes about retail reconnaissance. Comments about keeping the nice stores safe. A message sent 2 days before the Reynolds incident. Got another one at Target yesterday. These people think they can shop anywhere now. The store employee who had made the initial report was interviewed separately. Amanda Whitfield, 23, restocking shelves near the entrance. Why did you report Mr. Reynolds? He had bags. I didn't see him get a cart. Did you see him take anything without paying? No. Did you see any suspicious behavior? No. What made you think he was shoplifting? Silence. Ms. Whitfield, I just had a feeling. A feeling about what? He didn't look like our typical customer. What does your typical customer look like? She had no answer that wouldn't confirm what the investigation already knew. The store manager who had called police was terminated by Whole Foods corporate within the week. His decision to contact law enforcement, based on an employee's feeling with no supporting evidence, violated company policy and had exposed the chain to civil liability. The federal grand jury convened 6 weeks after the incident. The charges presented: deprivation of rights under color of law, assault, false imprisonment, civil rights violations. The evidence was comprehensive. The bodycam footage, the store security cameras, the phone recordings from witnesses, the DOD tracking records proving Reynolds' location and the timeline of federal response. Reynolds provided testimony over 2 days. He described the stop, the dismissal of his credentials, the astronaut comment, the takedown, the minutes on the floor while an officer's knee pressed into his back. I've operated in hostile territory for 14 years. I've been in firefights, ambushes, situations where the enemy was trying to kill me. I've never felt as disrespected as I did on that grocery store floor. The grand jury returned indictments within hours. The trial was scheduled for federal court. The federal courtroom in Norfolk drew national attention. The case had become a symbol, a Navy SEAL with a silver star, detained and thrown to the ground for buying groceries because he fit the description of being black. Reynolds testified in his dress, white uniform. 14 years of service displayed across his chest: silver star, bronze stars with valor, Navy Commendation Medal, combat deployment ribbons. The trident pin above them all. On December 3rd, I stopped at Whole Foods to buy groceries before a briefing at Naval Special Warfare Command. The briefing was classified. The timeline was important. I had 45 minutes. He described the stop, the demand for ID, the dismissal of his receipt, the moment Sloan called his credentials into question. I showed him my military ID. He said anyone could get a fake one. I showed him my receipt. He said receipts could be forged. I showed him my trident tattoo. He said anyone could get a tattoo. The bodycam footage was played for the jury. They watched Sloan approach. They watched him dismiss every piece of evidence Reynolds offered. They watched the astronaut comment. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. You're being detained. They watched the takedown. A compliant man driven to the floor. A trained operator who didn't resist because he knew the cameras were his allies. Chief Reynolds, how did it feel to be on that floor? I've been on floors before. I've been captured in training exercises. I've been in situations where enemy combatants had the advantage. This was different. Different how? Because this was my country. This was my grocery store. This was an American police officer treating me like an enemy combatant because of my skin color. The DOD agents testified about the tracking system, the missed briefing, the response timeline. 15 minutes from flagged absence to on-scene arrival. When operators with Chief Reynolds' clearance go dark, we investigate immediately. The work he does, the work I can't discuss in this courtroom, is too important to risk. Sloan's attorney attempted the standard defense. Good faith response to a legitimate call. No way to know. Following procedure. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. Following procedure? The procedure for a shoplifting report is to verify the complaint. Officer Sloan never spoke to store management. Never reviewed security footage. Never checked whether Mr. Reynolds had paid. He saw a black man and decided that was enough. She turned to the jury. I don't care if you're a damn astronaut. That's what Officer Sloan said to a Silver Star recipient. A man who has spent 14 years protecting this country in ways we can't discuss. That's not procedure. That's prejudice. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sloan stood motionless as the verdicts were read. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder. His family in the gallery wept. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. The defendant has demonstrated a pattern of conduct that betrays every principle of law enforcement. He used his badge to target citizens based on race. He did so to a decorated military hero in a grocery store over bags of groceries that were paid for. The consequences will reflect the severity of his choices. The courtroom was silent as the judge reviewed the pre-sentencing materials. 8 years of complaints. 19 documented incidents. A pattern visible to anyone who looked. Officer Sloan, you were entrusted with a badge to protect all citizens equally. Instead, you used that badge to harass, demean, and assault a man who has given 14 years of his life to protecting this nation. She paused. When Chief Reynolds showed you his military identification, you dismissed it. When he showed you his receipt, you ignored it. When he identified himself as a Navy SEAL, you said you didn't care if he was an astronaut. That contempt for his service, for his dignity, for the evidence directly in front of you, represents everything that is wrong with policing in America. The sentence, 18 years federal prison. Enhanced for targeting a military service member. Enhanced for the documented pattern of civil rights violations. Enhanced for the assault that occurred after Reynolds had clearly complied with instructions. Sloan was led from the courtroom in handcuffs, the same restraints he had applied to Reynolds in a grocery store 4 months earlier. The civil settlement followed within 3 months. Virginia Beach agreed to pay $12.8 million rather than face a trial the city knew it would lose. Reynolds distributed the money with purpose. $4 million to the Naval Special Warfare Foundation, supporting the families of SEALs killed or wounded in service. $3 million to establish scholarships for minority students pursuing military careers, ensuring that the next generation of operators wouldn't face the assumptions he had faced. $2 million to civil rights organizations focused on police accountability, funding the systemic change that individual cases couldn't achieve. The remaining funds secured his family's future, his parents' retirement, his siblings' children's education, the stability that service should have always guaranteed. The Virginia Beach Police Department entered a DOJ consent decree, 5 years of federal oversight, mandatory implicit bias training, reformed complaint review processes. The systems that had allowed 19 complaints to go unaddressed would finally be dismantled. Chief Patterson resigned before he could be forced out. 3 supervisors who had dismissed prior complaints were demoted. Officer Martinez, who had questioned her partner, who had shown doubt, who had ultimately handed over the handcuff keys, was promoted to lead the department's new community relations unit. She had done what Sloan refused to do. She had listened. The store manager who had called police was never rehired in retail management. Amanda Whitfield, the employee whose feeling had started it all, left the workforce entirely. The attention too intense, the accountability too unfamiliar. Reynolds returned to duty 3 weeks after the incident. The classified briefing he had missed was rescheduled. The operation it supported was executed successfully. The details remained redacted. He was promoted to Senior Chief Petty Officer 6 months later. He continues to serve at Naval Special Warfare Command. His work remains classified. His service continues. He still shops at the Whole Foods on Independence Boulevard. Same store. Same checkout lines. Same groceries. The manager who called police is gone. The employee who reported him is gone. The officer who detained him is serving 18 years in federal prison. The cameras remain. The body cams. The security footage. The phones that appear whenever something seems wrong. Reynolds knows they're there. He counted on them that morning. Knew that composure was the weapon, that documentation was the ammunition, that the system would work if he gave it evidence it couldn't ignore. He was right. 18 years. $12.8 million. 1 grocery store receipt that proved what should never have been questioned. Some descriptions fit perfectly. Derek Sloan fit the description of an officer who saw race before evidence, assumption before fact, prejudice before duty. That description will follow him for the rest of his life. The trident on Reynolds' forearm will last just as long. Only one of them earned what they carry.
Is that a problem, officer?
You need to stand up out of that chair. Now.
Stand up? Sir, is this a joke? I'm paralyzed.
Yeah, I've heard that before. People fake disabilities all the time.
But I'm not faking it.
You're getting out of this chair one way or another. Don't make it harder.
The 911 call lasted 43 seconds. A woman's voice. Certain. Offended. There's a man pretending to be disabled in the Kroger parking lot. He probably stole that wheelchair. He's using a fake handicap placard. The dispatcher asked for clarification. What made her think he was faking? I just know, Karen Whitmore said. People like him do this all the time. People like him. Sergeant First Class Michael Travers. 18 years Army. 5 combat deployments. Purple Heart. Bronze Star with Valor. Paralyzed from the waist down after an IED explosion in Helmand Province. An explosion he survived because he threw his body over a younger soldier and absorbed the blast himself. Officer Tyler Hendricks responded to that call. He demanded Travers stand up. When Travers explained he couldn't, hadn't walked in 5 years, spine severed, legs atrophied, Hendricks grabbed him by the arm, and pulled him from his wheelchair onto the parking lot asphalt. 43 seconds of suspicion, 20 years federal prison, and a caller who learned that people like him sometimes carry medals for the sacrifices she couldn't imagine. The Kroger on Preston Road served the suburban sprawl of Plano, Texas. Families loading minivans, retirees comparing produce, the ordinary commerce of a Saturday afternoon. Michael Travers had been shopping here for 3 years, ever since he and Janelle bought the wheelchair-accessible home 4 miles away. The motorized chair navigated the aisles with practiced efficiency. 14 months at Walter Reed had taught him how to adapt, how to reach high shelves with the grabber tool, how to balance grocery bags on the back of the chair, how to ignore the stares from people who couldn't reconcile a 42-year-old man with legs that didn't work. Sergeant First Class, retired. 18 years U.S. Army. 75th Ranger Regiment. 3 deployments to Afghanistan, 2 to Iraq. The kind of service record that filled a shadow box on his living room wall. The IED had detonated on a dirt road outside Marja in 2019. Travers had seen the pressure plate a fraction of a second before Specialist Rodriguez stepped toward it. He had thrown himself backward, shielding the younger soldier with his body. The blast killed Specialist Chun and Private Williams instantly. It severed Travers' spine at T10. Rodriguez walked away without a scratch. Purple Heart. Bronze Star with Valor. Silver Star nomination pending. 14 months at Walter Reed learning to live in a chair. Medically retired with full honors in 2021. Now he volunteered at the VA, helping newly paralyzed veterans adjust. Spoke at high schools and corporate events about resilience. Raised his daughter and son with Janelle, the physical therapist who had helped him learn to transfer from bed to chair and had married him 6 months after his discharge. This Saturday, he had dropped Maya at soccer practice, sent Janelle and Marcus to a birthday party, and headed to Kroger for the weekly run. Bread, milk, the snacks his kids demanded, the vegetables Janelle insisted on. He was loading bags onto his chair near the accessible van when Karen Whitmore watched from her Lexus 3 spaces away. She saw a black man in a wheelchair. She saw a handicapped placard. She saw something that offended her sense of who belonged in spaces she considered hers. She dialed 911. There's a man pretending to be disabled in the Kroger parking lot. Officer Tyler Hendricks was dispatched at 2:21 p.m. 6 years on the Plano PD, 14 prior complaints in his personnel file. A pattern that would emerge later, but was already visible to anyone who looked. He arrived at 2:23 p.m. His partner, Officer Reina Mendez, followed in a separate vehicle. Her Bodycam activated as she stepped out. Axon Body 2. Timestamp 14 hours 23 minutes and 41 seconds. Travers was securing the last grocery bag when he noticed the officers approaching. 2 uniforms. One walking with purpose. One hanging back. Is there a problem, officer? Hendricks stopped 3 feet from the wheelchair. His posture was aggressive, weight forward, hand resting on his belt. Mendez's Bodycam captured him from behind, framing Travers in the center of the shot. You need to stand up out of that chair. Now. Travers looked up. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. Stand up? Sir, is this a joke? I'm paralyzed. Yeah, I've heard that before. People fake disabilities all the time. The words landed in the afternoon air. Mendez's Bodycam recorded them clearly. So did Hendricks' own camera, though from a different angle. I'm not faking anything. I'm a disabled veteran. I was paralyzed by an IED in Afghanistan in 2019. Sure you were. Travers gestured to his legs, visible beneath the black joggers, atrophied from 5 years without use. The muscle wasting was obvious to anyone who looked. The unnatural stillness. The way they sat in the chair without the micro-adjustments that working legs constantly make. Look at my legs. They haven't moved in 5 years. My spine was severed at T10. I spent 14 months at Walter Reed. Walter Reed. Hendricks' tone carried skepticism the Bodycam captured clearly. Anyone can say that. I have documentation. My VA disability card is in my wallet. My military ID. I don't need to see your paperwork. Then what do you need? I need you to get out of that chair and prove you can't walk. Travers' jaw tightened. Mendez's camera caught the micro-expression. The moment disbelief gave way to something harder. Officer, I cannot get out of this chair and walk. That's what paralysis means. My legs don't work. They will never work again. That's what everyone says until they get caught. Caught doing what? Shopping at Kroger? Faking a disability. Using a stolen wheelchair. fraudulent handicap placard. None of those things are happening. This is my wheelchair, provided by the Wounded Warrior Project after my injury. That placard was issued by the state of Texas DMV. I have the paperwork in my van. Hendricks stepped closer. His hand moved from his belt to the armrest of Travers' wheelchair. You're getting out of this chair one way or another. Don't make it harder. For the record, Travers' voice carried the calm of someone who had faced situations far more dangerous than this. I am a paralyzed veteran. I am unable to stand or walk. Any attempt to remove me from this wheelchair will cause injury. I am documenting this statement for any recording devices present. He looked directly at Mendez's body cam, then at the Kroger security camera mounted on a light pole 20 feet away, then at a woman with a phone raised near the store entrance. There are at least 3 cameras recording this encounter. I've identified myself as disabled. I've offered documentation. You have no legal basis to physically remove me from a medical device. I have a 911 call saying you're faking. A 911 call isn't proof. My legs are proof. My medical records are proof. My service history is proof. Mendez spoke for the first time, quietly, directed at her partner. Tyler, maybe we should just check his documents. Hendricks didn't turn around. I've been doing this for 6 years. I know a faker when I see one. He grabbed the armrest of the wheelchair. Last chance. Get up, or I'm pulling you out. Travers reached slowly toward his chest. The purple heart pin was visible on his hoodie, the distinctive purple ribbon, the gold heart with Washington's profile. This pin was presented to me at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center by a 2-star general. It represents a wound received in combat that resulted in my permanent disability. Hendricks glanced at it. His expression didn't change. Anyone can buy those online. I've seen the scam. People get sympathy and free parking. This isn't a scam. This is my life. Then prove it. I'm trying to prove it. You won't let me. Travers reached into the pocket on the side of his wheelchair, slowly, keeping his movements visible for the cameras. I'm reaching for my wallet. Inside is my VA disability card, my military ID, and my Texas driver's license showing this address. He produced the wallet. He opened it. 3 cards visible in plastic sleeves. VA disability card. 100% service-connected disability. Paralysis, lower extremities. He held it up. Hendricks barely looked. Military ID. Michael A. Travers. Sergeant First Class. Retired. Another card. Another dismissal. Driver's license. This address is 4 miles from here. I've lived here for 3 years. The staff inside that Kroger know me. The pharmacist fills my prescriptions. The manager helped me reach a top shelf last month. Anyone can have fake IDs. These aren't fake. They're issued by the federal government and the state of Texas. I've seen better fakes. Mendez had moved to a position where her body cam captured both men. Travers in his wheelchair, documentation in hand, and Hendricks standing over him with his hand still on the armrest. Tyler. Her voice was quiet but urgent. His legs aren't moving. Look at them. They haven't shifted once since we got here. That's called acting. That's not how paralysis works. You can't fake muscle atrophy. Stay out of this, Mendez. She stepped back. Her body cam kept recording. Travers looked at Hendricks with an expression that had faced Taliban fighters and IED creators, and the news that 2 of his brothers hadn't survived the blast. Officer, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to hear it. On March 14, 2019, an improvised explosive device detonated beneath my squad in Helmand Province. I saw the pressure plate before one of my soldiers stepped on it. I threw myself between him and the blast. The explosion killed Specialist David Chun and Private First Class Marcus Williams. It severed my spinal cord. I will never walk again. He held up the purple heart pin. This represents that moment. This represents their sacrifice. This represents everything I lost so that a 20-year-old soldier named Rodriguez could go home to his family. He set the pin on his lap. If you think I would fake this, fake the injury that killed my friends and ended my career, then you don't understand anything about service, or sacrifice, or what it means to wear a uniform. Hendricks' hand tightened on the armrest. I've heard enough. He grabbed Travers' arm with his other hand. You're coming out of that chair. I'm warning you. And I'm done listening. He yanked. Travers' body came out of the wheelchair sideways. His arm, gripped by Hendricks, pulled his torso forward while his legs, dead weight, unresponsive, failed to follow in any coordinated way. He hit the asphalt. Mendez's body cam captured the fall, the sound of impact, the way his legs crumpled beneath him at angles that working limbs would never allow. The Purple Heart pin bouncing across the pavement, coming to rest 5 feet away. His grocery bag scattered. Bread, milk, the snacks his kids had requested. All of it spreading across the handicapped parking space. Now stand up. Hendricks stood over him. The body cam captured his posture. Aggressive, certain, still refusing to see what was directly in front of him. Quit playing. Get up. Travers lay face down on the hot asphalt. His arms pushed against the ground, the only part of his body that still responded to his commands. His legs remained exactly where they had fallen. Twisted. Immobile. I can't stand. His voice was strained. Not from acting, but from the position, from the heat of the pavement, from the pain radiating through a spine that had never fully healed. My spine is severed. I haven't walked in 5 years. I said get up. I can't. Screams from the parking lot. Bystanders who had stopped to watch, who had raised their phones when they saw an officer confronting a man in a wheelchair. What are you doing? A man's voice. Running footsteps. He's in a wheelchair. What's wrong with you? Another voice. Female. Horrified. Oh my God. Oh my God. Mendez rushed forward. Her body cam captured her movement toward Travers, her hands reaching to support him. Tyler, stop. Look at his legs. He's not faking. She knelt beside Travers. Her camera now pointed at the ground, at his twisted lower body, at legs that showed years of atrophy in every visible line. Sir, don't try to move. I'm calling an ambulance. My back. Travers' voice was tight. The IED damaged. There's hardware in my spine. Don't move. We're getting help. She keyed her radio. Dispatch, this is Officer Mendez. I need EMS at Kroger on Preston Road. We have an injured person in the parking lot. Possible spinal involvement. Send them now. Hendricks stood motionless. The bystander footage, captured from multiple angles by phones throughout the parking lot, showed his face as comprehension finally arrived. The legs weren't moving because they couldn't move. The man wasn't getting up because getting up had never been possible. The wheelchair wasn't stolen. The placard wasn't fake. The Purple Heart wasn't purchased online. Everything Travers had told him was true. An older man pushed through the gathering crowd. White hair. Vietnam veteran cap. He knelt beside Travers and took his hand. I got you, brother. I got you. His voice cracked. You're not alone. We're here. Travers lay on the asphalt, the Texas sun beating down, surrounded by strangers who had seen what an officer had refused to see. My daughter, his voice was barely audible. She has a soccer game. I was supposed to pick her up. Someone will call your family. Just stay still. My wife, she's at a birthday party with my son. We'll find them. Don't worry about anything right now. The Vietnam veteran looked up at Hendricks with an expression that 50 years of memory had earned. What the hell is wrong with you? Hendricks didn't answer. His body cam recorded his silence. The crowd had grown to 30 people by the time the ambulance arrived. Phones remained raised. Voices overlapped. Anger, disbelief, the particular outrage that comes from witnessing cruelty that should have been impossible. Mendez stayed with Travers, her body positioned to shade him from the sun, her voice steady as she monitored his condition. Sir, can you feel this? She touched his hand. Yes. Can you move your fingers? He moved them. Can you feel anything below your waist? No. I haven't felt anything below my waist since 2019. Okay. The paramedics are almost here. Just keep breathing. Hendricks had retreated to a position near his patrol car. His body cam continued recording, capturing the crowd, the phones, the man lying on the asphalt in a gray army hoodie. A woman approached him, mid-30s, scrubs visible beneath a light jacket. She worked at the medical office across the street. I'm a nurse. What happened? Ma'am, please step back. I can see what happened. You pulled a man out of a wheelchair. What? There was a complaint. A complaint about what? Being disabled in public. Ma'am, I've worked with paralyzed patients for 8 years. I can see his legs from here. That's not acting. That's atrophy. That's what happens when muscles don't work for years. She walked past him toward Travers. Sir, I'm a registered nurse. Can I help? His spine, Mendez began. I heard. Previous injury. We need to stabilize him before any movement. The ambulance arrived at 2:31 p.m. Paramedics approached with a backboard, their movements practiced and efficient. Sir, we're going to need to move you very carefully. Can you tell us about your spinal injury? T10 complete. Hardware at T8 through T12. 14 surgeries at Walter Reed. The paramedic's expression flickered, the recognition of a catastrophic injury described with clinical precision. We're going to log roll you onto the board. Keep your arms across your chest. They worked as a team. Mendez helping. The nurse from across the street assisting. The Vietnam veteran stepping back, but staying close. Travers was secured to the backboard and lifted onto the stretcher. His wheelchair sat empty beside his van, the grocery bags still scattered, his Purple Heart pin still lying on the asphalt. The Vietnam veteran picked up the pin. He examined it, the same medal he had earned in a different war, a different jungle, a different explosion. He walked to the stretcher and pressed it into Travers' hand. Don't lose this, brother. You earned it. Thank you. What's your name? Michael. Michael Travers. Sergeant First Class, retired. I'm Harold. Harold Washington. Sergeant, 1st Infantry Division. 1968. Semper Fi is an army, but brothers are brothers. The paramedics began moving the stretcher toward the ambulance. Mendez walked alongside. Sir, I'm sorry. I tried to stop him. I know you did. This shouldn't have happened. No, it shouldn't have. She looked at Hendricks, still standing near his patrol car, still silent, still being recorded by every phone in the parking lot. He's going to answer for this. I'll make sure of it. Travers closed his eyes. My wife. Someone needs to call my wife. I'll handle it. What's her name? Janelle. The number is on my medical alert bracelet. Mendez found the bracelet on his wrist. She copied the number. I'll call her right now. Tell her I'm okay. Tell her. Tell her I'm sorry I'm going to miss Maya's soccer game. I'll tell her. The ambulance doors closed. The siren activated. And Michael Travers was transported to the hospital. The second time in his life an explosion had put him on a stretcher. Janelle Travers arrived at 2:47 p.m. Someone from the crowd, she never learned who, had also called the Kroger manager, who had called the number on Travers' pharmacy account. She pulled into the parking lot in her Honda Pilot, Marcus still strapped in his car seat in the back, confused about why they had left the birthday party early. The ambulance was gone. The crowd remained. The police cars remained. The wheelchair remained. Empty, sitting beside the accessible van, a visual accusation. She saw Mendez first, then Hendricks, then the scattered groceries, then the empty chair. Where's my husband? She was running before Mendez could respond. Ma'am, Mrs. Travers. Where is he? What happened? Mendez intercepted her before she could reach the scene. He's been transported to Medical City Plano. He's conscious and stable. Why? What did you do? Mendez's bodycam captured her face. Terror, fury, the particular anguish of someone who had already watched her husband survive one catastrophe and couldn't understand why he was facing another. There was an incident. Officer Hendricks. Janelle saw him, standing near his patrol car. Silent. She moved toward him with a speed that Mendez couldn't intercept. What did you do to him? Ma'am, please calm down. Calm down. You pulled my husband out of his wheelchair? He's paralyzed. He was paralyzed saving another soldier's life. There was a complaint. A complaint? Someone complained about a disabled veteran shopping for groceries. Ma'am, he's a war hero. He has a Purple Heart. He spent 14 months at Walter Reed learning to live in that chair. Harold Washington, the Vietnam veteran who had stayed, stepped forward. Ma'am, I saw everything. Your husband identified himself. He showed his pin. He offered documentation. The officer refused to listen. He what? He pulled him out of the chair. Your husband hit the ground. His legs. Harold couldn't finish. Janelle turned back to Hendricks. Her voice had dropped from a scream to something quieter. Something worse. My husband shielded a younger soldier with his body when an IED exploded. He absorbed the blast that would have killed them both. 2 of his friends died 10 feet away. And you pulled him out of his wheelchair because someone called 911. Hendricks said nothing. A supervisor's vehicle pulled into the lot. Lieutenant Catherine Ross, 15 years on the force, summoned when the scope of the incident became clear. She assessed the scene in seconds. The empty wheelchair. The scattered groceries. The woman confronting her officer. The crowd with phones still raised. Officer Hendricks. Step away from the civilian. Lieutenant, I was responding to a call. Step away. Now. She approached Janelle with the deference that the situation required. Ma'am, I'm Lieutenant Ross. I'm going to need a full account of what happened here. And I'm going to need to secure All evidence. Evidence of what? Of whatever my officer did. Starting with his body cam. She turned to Hendricks. Your badge and weapon. Now, Lieutenant. That's an order. You're relieved of duty pending investigation. The crowd watched as Hendricks surrendered his badge, his weapon, his authority. Karen Whitmore, the woman who had made the 911 call, was still in the parking lot, standing near her Lexus, watching the aftermath of her 43 seconds of certainty. Ross noticed her. Ma'am, are you the one who called this in? Yes, I thought. Stay where you are. I'll need your statement. Janelle looked at the empty wheelchair. At the Purple Heart pin Harold was still holding. At the groceries scattered across the pavement. I need to get to the hospital. I'll have an officer escort you. And ma'am, Ross's voice softened. I'm sorry. This should never have happened. The bodycam footage was secured within the hour. Both officers' recordings. Kroger's security cameras. Phone videos from at least 7 bystanders. The investigation that followed would prove what the footage suggested. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. Officer Tyler Hendricks had accumulated 14 complaints in 6 years. Excessive force. Discriminatory conduct. Failure to follow procedure. 12 had been dismissed through departmental review. 2 had resulted in brief suspensions, 3 days each, served without fanfare. 3 of those complaints involved disabled individuals. In 2021, he had accused a man with cerebral palsy of faking his condition during a traffic stop. In 2022, he had demanded a woman with MS get out of her mobility scooter to prove she couldn't walk. In 2023, he had detained a veteran with prosthetic legs, claiming the prosthetics looked suspicious. Each complaint had been dismissed. Insufficient evidence. Officer's account differed. Pattern not recognized. His social media accounts filled in the picture. Posts mocking fake cripples and welfare warriors. Comments on news articles about disability fraud claiming half of them are scammers. Membership in online groups where users shared videos of people caught faking disabilities, most of which showed individuals with invisible conditions being harassed for using accommodations they legitimately needed. Text messages to fellow officers revealed more. Jokes about playing wheelchair inspector. Comments about certain neighborhoods having more fakers than real ones. A message sent 3 days before the Travers incident. Got another one today. These people think they can park anywhere with a stolen placard. The 911 call from Karen Whitmore was examined separately. Dispatch records showed no basis for her report. She had admitted to the operator that she hadn't witnessed any actual crime, just a feeling that the man didn't belong. Her call history revealed a pattern of her own. 6 911 calls in 3 years. A black family suspiciously moving into a house. A Hispanic gardener possibly casing homes. A teenager in a hoodie who didn't look right. None had resulted in any law enforcement action. All had been filed and forgotten. Until now. The FBI Civil Rights Division opened an investigation within 72 hours. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Texas was notified. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Section flagged the case for potential federal charges. The bodycam footage leaked within a week. 50 million views in the first 3 days. The image of a paralyzed veteran lying on hot asphalt while an officer demanded he quit playing became the defining visual of disability discrimination in law enforcement. Veterans organizations responded with coordinated outrage. The VFW, the American Legion, the Wounded Warrior Project, the organization that had provided Travers' wheelchair, Disabled American Veterans. Each issued statements condemning the incident and demanding accountability. The U.S. Army issued its own statement, confirming Travers' service record and decorations. Sergeant First Class Michael Travers served with distinction for 18 years, including 5 combat deployments. His injuries were sustained in the line of duty while protecting a fellow soldier. The treatment he received in that parking lot was a disgrace to every veteran who has sacrificed for this nation. Travers was released from Medical City Plano after 2 days. Additional scans showed no new damage to his spinal hardware. The fall had been traumatic but not catastrophic. He returned home to find his mailbox overflowing with letters. Fellow veterans. Strangers who had seen the video. People who wanted him to know that what happened wasn't right. The federal indictment came 8 weeks later. Civil rights violations. Assault on a disabled person. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Karen Whitmore was charged separately. filing a false police report. The trial was scheduled for federal court. The federal courtroom in Dallas filled to capacity every day. Veterans in unit caps and service organization jackets. Disability advocates. Journalists covering a case that had become national news. Travers testified in his Army dress uniform. 18 years of service displayed across his chest. Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart, Army Commendation Medal, combat patches, the insignia of the 75th Ranger Regiment. On March 14, 2019, I was leading a patrol outside Marja, Afghanistan. I saw an IED pressure plate a fraction of a second before Specialist Rodriguez stepped on it. I threw myself between him and the blast. He paused. Specialist Chun and Private Williams were behind me. They died instantly. My spinal cord was severed. Rodriguez walked away. The prosecutor displayed the bodycam footage. The jury watched Hendricks demand that Travers stand. They watched him dismiss the Purple Heart as something anyone can buy online. They watched him grab the wheelchair and pull. They watched Travers hit the ground. They watched his legs crumple in positions that proved everything Hendricks had refused to believe. I've been shot at in 3 countries, Travers continued. I've been hit by shrapnel, stabbed during hand-to-hand combat, and watched friends die. Nothing prepared me for lying helpless on that asphalt while a police officer accused me of pretending. The soldiers Travers had saved testified next. Specialist Rodriguez, now a sergeant himself, broke down describing the moment Travers threw himself into the blast. He saved my life. He gave up his legs to save my life. And that officer treated him like a criminal for shopping at Kroger. The doctor from Walter Reed testified about Travers' injuries. The severed spinal cord. The 14 surgeries. The medical impossibility of faking paralysis of that magnitude. Muscle atrophy of the type visible in Mr. Travers' legs takes years to develop. It cannot be simulated. It cannot be faked. Any officer with basic observational training should have recognized it immediately. Hendricks' defense argued procedure. He was responding to a 911 call. He had reason to investigate. He couldn't have known. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. He couldn't have known? Mr. Travers told him. He showed him his legs. He showed him his Purple Heart. He offered his VA card, his military ID, his medical records. Officer Hendricks didn't want to know. He had already decided. The bodycam footage was played again. The jury watched Hendricks' face as he dismissed each piece of evidence. This looks fake. Anyone can buy those online. I don't care what paperwork you have. Karen Whitmore testified under subpoena. Her 43-second call was played for the jury. People like him do this all the time. What did you mean by people like him? The prosecutor asked. Silence. Mrs. Whitmore? I just meant people who. People who what? She had no answer the jury would accept. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Officer Hendricks. Civil rights violations. Assault on a disabled person. Deprivation of rights under color of law. Karen Whitmore, in a separate proceeding, was found guilty of filing a false police report. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later.